That time, there used to be a time whereby one would do P7 when you are still in P6. So actually I did my primary 7 was when I was in primary 6. And I think that was very good for my parents. But at the same time they said, no, you've done very well, P7 while you were in P6. You can still go to the secondary school. But then they said, no, you are still young, do your P7 at the normal age. So I think I was very cheeky, very stubborn, but also taking on, but also taking on odd roles wherever it was possible. I was an artist. I could go do netball. I could participate in everything that you could imagine. So we could also compete during the arts and drama schools. I also remember having participated in one of those shows where maybe the late President Amin was supposed to be, and I could dance all sorts of, yes, all those ones, yeah. And also in at O level, I could also dance. All, yes, in Abingo, Trinity College in Abingo, I could dance all sorts of dances. So I was there to be seen. I could clear my space and show them that I'm around. Yeah.
Considering you had 6 brothers.
Yeah. Actually, they showed me the way because they could not stand me. Every time I would go to them that say, and I would look, but these are my brothers, but they're trying to find out why I'm supposed to be with them. So I used to fight for my space all the time. Yeah.
So now you became quite vocal at a young age. So after Trinity College Nabingo, then you...
After Trinity College Nabingo, I went to the university, Makerere University. I did political science and sociology, 3 years. This was 1981 to 83 there. But then this was during the time of the political activism against the late President Obote. That was when I was also elected to be part of the guild. I was a representative of Mary Stuart Hall and the guild council. I became very vocal. We used to walk at night trying to do some activism, but also at the same time I was working at Radio Uganda, hosting different personalities, and this is where I got in touch with Mr. Olum, Mr. Bwenje, Mr. Paul Semogerere, and also the late, I cannot even remember, there are several figures from the Democratic Party. So if you are talking about the Democratic youth wingers of these days, it was me, I was part of them of those days. So I also remember that I also got a scholarship to go to Nairobi after Makerere University because of my activism in politics during the 80s.
So what drove you into this kind of thing? At university, you see, most people just want to relax, chill, but you said, no, I need to be quite active, get into activism. What drove you into that?
I am not very sure what drove me into that, but I think maybe girls at Mary Stuart Hall found me a little bit vocal, and electing people, it depends on what or how you have spoken during an event, and they think you can do it. But also I think because I was already working at Radio Uganda, organizing and also hosting personalities, maybe that could have been one of the reasons. Yeah, but I also wanted to speak on behalf of other people who could not speak out. Yes.
So now you go to Nairobi. What was that scholarship for or about?
The scholarship that I got was to do a postgraduate diploma in mass communication at the School of Journalism, supported by Konrad Adenauer Foundation. Remember Konrad Adenauer Foundation, I think it even still has some good ties with the Democratic Party in this country. So I was actually a Democratic Party youth wing at those days. So I went and did a postgraduate diploma in journalism at the School of Journalism for 1 year. Then later on, I was attached to the Nation Media Group for about a year. But also don't forget, those were the years when the current president was fighting to come to power. So I got so much connected in a small way, writing about the story about Museveni coming to power and the like.
So while you were at Radio Uganda at the time and probably trying to try out your news anchoring skills on UTV, what was that like for you? Because you're still at the university, you're into activism, and here you are saying, I also need to work because I need to speak for people. How was that like?
How was it like? I was still young, but what I remember was that there was some kind of classism at Radio Uganda. If you are pursuing a degree, they regarded you like somebody different from the rest of the group. And then because you are a young girl somehow, they looked at you like, oh, she's one of those people that we are going to scoop. So they were, every time I would walk around, so the boys or the men were really out to get me. But I think I was a little bit careful not to get into that trap. Yeah, but it was tough growing up during that time. Yeah.
Because I was going to say, as a young girl, as a woman in itself, here you are saying, let me go out there and work and also get into activism. Did you face any kind of gender discrimination then?
Any kind of gender discrimination at Radio Uganda, maybe to be pitied. I would be pitied. Young girl has come to work. Oh, that girl who is pursuing a degree. So they would pity me. But I think the discrimination that I could speak about is when it happened when I was teaching at Uganda Management Institute. Yeah, much later. This is when I had gotten back from Nairobi because I did become a news editor at Uganda Television, but then later on I was seconded to be a lecturer at Uganda Management Institute. That was around 1989 to 1995, 96 there. So there, I really felt a little bit discriminated because that was the time when I had my first kid. And how did I feel discriminated? This is the scenario. I get a kid. I was supposed to have maternity leave for about 60 days. But here was my boss coming to where I was staying, and he came reminding me about, we are at the School of Journalism, but we don't have lecturers. She never told me, come back and teach. But him coming to home and letting me know how things were not going well at the School of Journalism, that they were short of lecturers. I was like, so this boss has come to me to tell me that I actually needed to go back as early as possible. So the discrimination, that is what I can say, but of course the sexual harassment was all over the place. The bit that I've not told you was that I also used to work at Uganda Television as a television announcer. That time, we even had to train to become a television announcer. An announcer, what did you have to do? You had to come at least every hour to let the viewers what was going to come on air. So when I trained like that, I felt some bit of harassment, I was still a young girl, you remember? But here was a gentleman who was using an older woman to come to UMI. That was when I was still a student, because I also did some student, whatever, at UMI. And this big woman was actually facilitating sexual harassment against me. So one day, the big car came at Uganda Management Institute. This was several years ago in the 80s. And I was supposed to be picked to go to the permanent secretary. Those years, you may not even get to know who I'm speaking about. So then I was picked, I entered the car, and I thought it was about business as usual at Uganda Television. But then this big woman told me that I was needed by her boss. So I entered the office, and then I saw this man. He started making faces. He was telling me I was supposed to go with him somewhere during the weekend on duty, and I was like, no, what is going on? But my intellect told me, you are not safe here. Run away very fast. So I did. So I will never forget that incident. And if I was not clever or fast enough, I think I was going to be taken advantage of. And from that day, I stopped working on Uganda Television as a television announcer. So in terms of discrimination, in terms of being taken advantage of as a woman, those are the main things that I can remember. But of course, when you are in a boardroom doing some discussions, the men will always rephrase what you have spoken, and that makes you feel bad. It's like, that one has to speak on my behalf. So these things always happen, but it all depends on how you can deal with them. Yeah.
You give your take and then someone repeats it for you, and then that's when everyone's like, oh yes, by the way. So now you go to Nairobi. After going through all these, you've got your scholarship, you've stood your ground, then you go to Nairobi. Tell us about that.
I go to Nairobi while I was still young again. I find a community which is very, very tough. They're individualistic. They work pretty fast. They work and also walk pretty fast. And this was my first time to fly. So I felt like, okay, this is my new place. And the class at the School of Journalism were only about 12 people of different nationalities, people from West Africa, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Uganda, Tanzania, and a few Kenyans. And here I found a class that is, pretty fast, different in opinions, but I had to be there. And I think at first I was not able to fit in, given the fact that in Uganda we are a little bit slower, but this is where I found, I have to move faster. And then I also got in touch with these Kenyans who are rough, and they were telling you point blank. And then you get into the newsroom, because I trained at the Nation Media Group. I find even other cruel men, they were talking to me direct. But he would shout at me across the newsroom. The newsroom at NMG was big, was maybe 30 meters times whatever. So he would shout at me after submitting my story. He would shout at me and say, "You hapless Ugandan girl, what did you want to mean in this story?" And I would actually cry at the beginning. So he would call me, we sit together, and then he would help me organize my story.
So you literally would edit all the...
He would actually butcher it, if you want to call it, butcher it, and he changes almost everything. So in the morning, I would see my story by Margret Bukira Centam, and I felt so nice. But most of the work had been done by that late Phil Pocheng. And afternoon, it would be the same story, shouting at me like that. So it went on and on and on and like that. But later on, I got used to it because I could see a better product out of the work that I had started. And guess who had helped me reach that far? It was that man and the rest of the editors. So my encouragement to the young people, particularly who are doing stories, they need to listen to their editors, because when they cut or edit or butcher their stories, it is not in the it is not like, they don't like them, but they want to have a better product. And that better product, it is you who originated it, and you should feel very happy. And that I came with it throughout my work. Where I work, I am point blank. I will butcher your story, I will butcher your report, and you look at me like, no, but madam, you want to be perfect all the time. But at the end of the day, these are the same people who call you back and say, oh, madam, I am this because of you. So they look at the product and say, oh, this is good. Yeah.
So, but usually there's this age, you've started out, you're fresh, you're excited, you've graduated, and then every time you bring up a product, your editor is saying, this is the worst I've seen, we need to go afresh. I think it just naturally, as a young girl, some people lose hope.
Yeah, people, they should not lose hope. I think there is this mentality which I want to share with everybody, particularly if you are a writer. There should never be a full stop. Learning, you'll keep learning, but if you think that you have arrived and this is your full stop in life, you'll never learn. You need to be a learner. I am here to learn, I am here to improve. But you feel that you have arrived, then you are not going to learn anymore. So the young people, you really need to keep listening and be happy that you have somebody before you telling you this is wrong, we can still improve. And even when we're training, I'm not sure about the young people today, you would do what is called a post-mortem of the newspaper. And this post-mortem means what went right, what went wrong, and we're told everything still has got room to be improved upon. So if we're talking about a newspaper of 50 pages and we go through it and we've been told anything can still be improved upon, what about your small story?
So now you've graduated, you've gone to the Nation Media Group, you've done your training there for about a year. Then you come back to Uganda?
I come back to Uganda. I am seconded to Uganda Television. I become a news editor. But I think at Uganda Television as a news editor, I worked there for about a year. There was a story that I did or edited, and maybe Parliament never liked it, the way it sounded. I cannot remember so well, but I know some guys who are involved in it. They never liked how it sounded. It sounded like, we are promoting Kenya against Uganda. So I was stopped from working for a month, but then the permanent secretary told me that, come talk to me about exactly what happened. I think he agreed with me that there was nothing wrong with the story, and then I was later seconded to go to Uganda Management Institute to teach as a lecturer, School of Journalism. I stayed there for about 6 or 7 years, up until 1996. And I taught a class of about 17 students. But what happened at Uganda Management Institute, School of Journalism, was also appalling, particularly at the very beginning when I went there. This class of 15 or 17, you had only 3 or 4 girls against 12 boys, and that bothered me a lot. Actually, I think that is what made my turning point in my life. You had a class of 17 students, only 4 were girls, and I'm like, no, why? What happened? Where are the girls? And at that time, I was also close to Radio Uganda with the girls. So I'm like, why? Why this imbalance? So I went to Radio Uganda. I asked them, you guys, why don't you come to study at UMI? Then the girls were telling me, we don't have school fees. UMI is so expensive. I'm okay. So it is about the money. Okay. So I fundraised together with Honorable Sheila Kawamara. We walked Kololo. We went to industrial area looking for money for the girls to come at UMI to study. So when we had the money from Conrad Adenauer Foundation and Freddie Shibard Foundation, the girls were not forthcoming again. What's wrong with the girls? We got the scholarships, about 15 scholarships, but the girls were not coming. So then we went back and tried to find out, why is it? Even if there is money, the girls don't come to upgrade. Then we were told they had to get permission from their husbands. And then somehow, quite a number of them did not have confidence. They told us that, they fear to be interviewed because there had to be a panel to interview the people to come at the school. Then I said, okay, so if it is interviewing, I'll handle that. So I would personally coach them what to say on a panel. Because I was supposed to be at the panel. I'm sorry to say this. Supposed to be at the panel.
So
and then
there was a problem, yes?
I had to coach them. I would call them at my room at Nakasero, one by one, and none of them knew that I was actually coaching all of them at the same time. No, I would call Rowena at 9, then I would call Margret at about 10. So each one of them, I'll tell them, this is what you should do, this is how you have to speak. And then they would come at UMI for the interview, and then they would go through the interview, and then the scholarship was there. So progressively, we managed to get more girls at the School of Journalism, and by the time I left, about 60 of them had actually gotten those scholarships and done the diplomas at School of Journalism, and even others were encouraged to go back to Makerere University to study a degree or a diploma.
We're going to come back to this discussion. It's quite interesting. And, sometimes you have to do things you probably wouldn't have done so that you can take the next step. We're still here. We're having a discussion with Margret Sentamu Bukirwa. Of course, there's a number of them. Mary, Masagazi. Still watching Super Soul Sisters. We'll be right back. Before we left for the break, that there's certain things you have to do, so that you can make that huge leap or step. So some of these ladies that you were able to sneak in and give a brief, understanding and coaching on what they should expect so that we can have more girls. If you don't mind sharing more, some of these people, where they are now.
They will forgive me, but this is the truth. But I also enjoy to see them being where they are or grow. I have this lady called Yairi Adiko. She's now the station manager of Veritas Radio, I think in Soroti. Then you also have Sarah Kisolo. He's also a big woman in the media. She has an NGO right now. Of course, the late Namsaze, who actually died while she was working with the UN as a volunteer in Somalia, and quite many others, because I've aged, so I've forgotten some of them, but quite a number of them.
You're probably being very subtle on this one. But anyway, so that happens by the time you left, 6 years later, the lecturer, about 60 ladies are there studying, 60, and they were doing quite well, because you'd mentioned some of them said, we have to ask permission from our husband. Did you still identify some things that hindered them?
I think basically it's about confidence, lack of confidence among most of us women. Even if you have gone to school, you could be having a PhD, but the way we have been groomed as women, we expect the men to speak for us, or we expect the men to speak first before we give in our opinions. We also think that the men will provide for us all the time. No, but that is society, but that is also wrong, because we have moved from that stage. We actually provide for ourselves. We provide for our children, but we also provide for our husbands. Because at the end of the day, when you ask both men and women who paid school fees for you, you will be very surprised to see that about 80% will say it is my mother. When you ask who pays rent at home, you'll also be surprised to see that women are actually paying rent. So we have moved from that stage whereby it is the men who are the hunters or the gatherers.
There's some times when you have opinions as a woman, and so many men will come out and say, but why is she so loud? Why does she have to have a say on everything, you know? So maybe that's why some women hold back, as much as they might have good opinions.
Yeah, the men have to speak for us, yes and no. But again, we also need to be accepted by society. But then the question is, how can we balance this? Is society going to be there all the time for me, or has it been there all the time for me? How much can I outgrow society? That is another question. At the end of the day, it is a question at the individual level. What is it that you want from society? But also don't forget, you also need to be accepted by society somehow. Yeah, somehow. Yeah, true. But as for the young people, really, you need to speak out your mind, but also dress that opinion in a way that you're going to be accepted, because you cannot go it alone. I think this is my experience. I have a daughter who is very loud. He's really vocal, but I keep letting her remember that you are part of society. You need to be accepted somehow. But of course, we have those fights. She keeps telling me, Mommy, you want to shut me down. You are making me lose my confidence. I tell her, yeah, I'm sorry, but there is a wider society.
So maybe we need to involve the men more.
Definitely, men have to be involved. That is why when we are teaching or interacting on the gender subject, gender is both female and male. So you are not going to put the women alone and tell them, you know, you have these rights, you have to do this. We keep telling the women that men are part and parcel of society where you have to be, and we also bring men on board and tell them, you know, things have changed somehow, and we put them to be part of the problem and also be part of the solution. At the end of the day, men and women get out of that training session happy that here there is an elephant in the room, and this elephant in the room, these are the strategies, the solutions, and we'll work together to ensure that both men and women are happy in a better world. Yes.
After UMI, what next for you then?
After UMI, I went to be part of the it was called SEJOKU, Civic Education Joint Coordination Unit, and I used to sit at the Secretariat as one of the 4 coordinators on civic education. So after the elections, we decided that Uganda Media Women's Association needed to have a full-time secretariat, and then we fundraised, and then I relinquished the chairpersonship, and then I became the executive director. So since 1997, I've been at Uganda Media Women's Association, planning, monitoring, and all those good programs that we have had, including the Women's Radio, Mama FM, which is going to make 20 years in August 24th. Yeah.
What has that experience been like? Some of the things you've learned, or things that for you are very important to note and for us to see from your angle?
I think one of the things that I need to think about is that originating these different projects that are supposed to engender the media in Uganda, they have not come very easy. But also, after having done a master's in gender studies at Makerere University between 1997 and 98, that course, the master's, also helped me a lot to understand and appreciate the situation of women. That course helps you to appreciate, yeah, we are different genders, but we bring different contributions to the table, and we come from different backgrounds, but also meeting different challenges along the way. At the end of the day, we need each other, both the female and the male. So after appreciating that, now you become a little bit patient with the female gender, because you know why women do the things the way they do them, because of culture which has not been very patient, or which has not been very beneficial to us as women. Because as you know very well, women, we are brought up to be spoken for, to be provided for, to be slow, to be accepted in society and the like, and yet the men have been brought up to be leaders, to be providers and the like.
What are some of those things that through your childhood now you say, or when you got your first child, you said, I need to do different with mine?
This favoritism at home was not so good, because my mom really used to love me a lot, very special. My dad, the same. So maybe I missed out on some of the very serious work that I should have been doing. So now I look at my own 2 kids that I have, and maybe I never learned well. I tended not to give the hard stuff to these children, leaving most of the work being done by my good friend, the house manager. So somehow I regret, and I say, oh, maybe my children should have done do much more housework and the like.
So now this beautiful space was provided to us by Daughter Exclusive here in Ginger Road, Spear House. Some people might call it Doctors Exclusive, same thing, depends on how you pronounce these things. And of course they provided us this beautiful space to bring you this amazing show, and we do appreciate them for that. Of course, I'm still here with Margret Sentamu, and we've been having a very interesting conversation. In fact, while we were having a conversation in this break, we said we need to find out a few things. But first of all, what do you live by? What's that mantra you live by? Something that every time you wake up, you're like, this is what I live by.
I never want to leave any business unfinished. Deadlines are so important for me. And if I have said I will do this, I sure have to do it. And then the other thing that drives me, being part of that cause or story that will change somebody's life. Now, for example, this is not Kalango, but 20 years we started Mama FM. August 24th, we celebrate 20 years. So that makes me very, very happy, because we thought that it came as something like, many radio stations have come and they have gone. But this is a community radio, not for profit, but it is still standing, and I'm sure it will stand many more years.
We're now going health-wise. How do you keep yourself in shape, looking good?
I do a lot of herbal, but also do a lot of water. But I also walk at least 2 kilometers every day. Okay. I think that is what is keeping me look the way I do, but I already feel so old. I feel so old, Rowena.
So are you a jazz soul, or then there's the slow music today, the one we call
person? You cannot believe it, but I can dance. Yeah, I love it, when we... it's not jazz. Yeah.
Because jazz could be boring.
It's boring for me because I don't want slow things. I want to be part of that dynamism, and that's why I enjoy being with young people, because they keep me alert. I laugh with them and they challenge me. So I don't like slow things, by the way, and that's why I don't even put on gomesi. Gomesi is also another problem for me. If I have to go for a function and I have to put on a gomesi, I put it on under function, and immediately after the function, I remove it either in that particular venue or in the car. And then I put on a dress going back. So yeah, it slows me, and I'm a fast thinker, I thought.
That's a very good one. Thank you so much. Of course, Margret Sentambukirwa Masagazi. I'm going to add that one. And of course, other names I'll not complete because that's a whole sentence, I tell you. And someone told me in Africa here, if you have 1-2 names, you're not serious. You're not from Africa. But thank you so much for making time with us. She's been able to give us her life story, her life journey. I saw you rocking that afro. And of course, she said, I need to push myself forward. As women, we need to be much more vocal, but also knowing what kind of environment we're coming from. That's a tricky one. But we'll see how to go about that one. After this, we're going to have that conversation. Thank you so much, Super Soul Sisters. My name is Rowena Kajumba. We'll definitely be back here. Now, not forgetting, yes, that we are in this amazing, amazing place by Daughters Exclusive, or some people could call it Doctors Exclusive, here at Ginger Road Spear House. And of course, they have amazing furniture for you to look at. Very, very simple and swift colors, things that, you know, the hip people of today would like, if I could use those words. But thank you so much for making time with us. Till next time, bye.
Grow together with one of Uganda's largest companies. Apply for MTN shares for as low as 100,000 Uganda shillings. And when you apply using MTN Mobile Money, you get 10 free extra shares for every 100 shares you apply for. Dial *165*65# or use the MyMTN app to apply now. The terms and conditions of the offer and other important information are set out in the prospectus. For assistance, visit any MTN service center or Stanbic Bank branch countrywide or a licensed broker.